The way your business performs comes down to one single thing, which is the quality of the decisions that you make every day. And those decisions are only as strong as the data that feeds them. Now, the harsh truth is, if you're a founder of a company doing between $3 to $10 million a year in revenue, chances are you're not always digging deeper into your data in the first place. And no, it's not because you do not want to, or because you do not have time, or because you can't derive insights from the data. Those are just not the reasons. The main reason why you're not doing so is because you face tons of friction whenever you want to make data-driven decisions. And let me elaborate on this. Think about all those moments where you have finally found time to actually sit down and analyze your business. You know very well that there is nothing worse than having to spend 2 to 3 hours trying to consolidate and organize all the data from all the fragmented sources before you even start asking questions. Every time you need to log into all your systems, and by systems I mean your CRM, your payment processor, your ads manager, etc., you need to export data in CSV from all those systems, then import everything into a Google Sheet. Then you will start running a couple formulas to consolidate everything at the end, only to end up with a report that will literally get expired in the moment. And you keep repeating the exact same process every day, every week, every month, until you end up with a spreadsheet empire that's impossible to scale. Your entire backend becomes extremely messy and fragile that whenever you open a sheet to look at your data, you start seeing those errors all over the place. And guess what? All those errors that you are seeing are not actually the problem. Those are just symptoms of weak infrastructure and inefficient processes. Another thing, for example, that contributes to this mess is having no identification process for your leads and clients. So the only way you are identifying your clients with is by their full name. And this keeps putting you in situations where you are analyzing reports with duplicates, which makes the numbers that you have all wrong, and you just stop trusting everything at once. And if there is one thing that you need to know is that the moment a system starts providing wrong data multiple times, the system loses its credibility. Another reason being data-driven feels hard for you is because of latency. And what I mean by latency is, by the time your reports are ready, it's too late to actually act or make any meaningful decision. The month ends at the 31st, then either you or your team starts spending days or weeks to have the reporting ready. And by the time the reports are in your hand, it's already the 15th of the month. So you have already lost 15 days of momentum where you could have actually improved multiple things based on last month's data. All the struggles that I've been describing during the last 2 to 3 minutes are what actually keeps you flying blind as a founder. So you end up making decisions based on your gut feeling, while knowing deep down that your data actually holds real answer that you cannot just access in a usable way. And if all that I was saying describes exactly your situation, there is one thing that you need to know, is that your business has outgrown spreadsheets and traditional reporting. And until you solve this specific issue, the problem will only still get bigger and bigger and bigger, simply because the stage where you are at is the scaling stage. And if you decide to scale your business before solving your problems first, you end up scaling your problems instead. So in this video, I will walk you step by step through our data maturity playbook, which is the playbook that we use to take our clients from the mess they have in their data to having a mature backend, a CEO and company-wide dashboard, and a reliable data system that acts as a single source of truth and syncs with all their data sources and systems. By implementing this data maturity playbook, they got crystal clarity on what's happening on their business without having to pull any Google Sheet or export. But before we start, let me first introduce myself. If you do not know who I am, my name is Abdel. I have more than 6 years leading data and analytics in fast-growing tech startups around the world that have cumulatively raised more than $500 million in funding and billions in revenue. And currently I'm running Analytically, where we help founders just like you build data-driven companies by systemizing all their backend, build for them reliable data systems and custom tools that will allow them to scale the healthy way. And before we dive in, I want to first paint a clear picture on the outcome that we are trying to achieve exactly. When we talk about data maturity, what does that look like in business? What does make the difference between a business that's data mature versus one that's not? And the answer to this question relies on 3 words, which are frictionless, scalable, and reliable. We want a world where data is frictionless to access, built on a system that can scale, and reliable enough to trust. And trust me, those 3 words are not randomly picked. They are very well curated, that if you have exactly this inside your business, you will be getting the clarity that you've always been dreaming of as a founder or as a leader in general. So first thing, we want data that is frictionless to access. And what I mean by frictionless is, as a founder, data should be a couple seconds away, not a couple days or weeks away. No imports or exports that needs to be made. no sheets that have to be updated or anything of that sort. The only thing that you need to do as a CEO or a founder is to open your laptop and find everything clear and neat and ready for interpretation. So as I mentioned, the first point is frictionless. The second point is we want our data to be built on systems that can scale. Google Sheet is not scalable. Excel is not scalable because both those systems, they freeze in the neighborhoods of hundreds of thousands of rows. And if your company is doing millions of dollars, you are 99% holding data of millions of rows spread across dozens of tables. So as I mentioned before, you've hit that point where your business has outgrown spreadsheets and traditional reporting. And what you need now is a system that's robust enough to actually handle all that volume in a scalable way. So the second point is scalable. The third point and the last one is that we need data that's reliable enough to trust. And here's something that you need to know as a founder. If you have wrong data, that's way worse than having no data. Because at least with no data, you might be operating with gut feeling that might sometimes land you somewhere right. But with wrong data, you can never end up with good decisions and good outcomes becomes just impossible. So to repeat again, we want a world where data is frictionless to access, built on a system that can scale, and reliable enough to trust. And this is the word that we want to get in. You know what our North Star is? There is a sequence, a system, or call it a workflow that you must implement in your business in order to achieve that outcome. So now let me show you how does that system actually look like when everything is connected the right way. As you can see, this is a workflow of 3 steps. We have the first step here, which is the data sources. And think of this actually as the place where all your data lives. If you are running, for example, ads on Facebook, that means that you have data on Facebook. If you process payments through Stripe or any other processor, that means that you have data there. If you are using a CRM like HubSpot or Go High Level, that means that you have some data in HubSpot and Go High Level. So think of the data sources as all the tools and all the systems that you are using on a daily basis to actually manage your business. The second layer is the data warehouse. And think of this as a Google Sheet on steroids, a place that never freezes, no matter how fast you scale or how many millions of rows have been added to your tables. It's fast, scalable, and absurdly cost-effective for all the power it unlocks. And this actually becomes the central house when all your business data lives and stay async. The way how this works is that your data will move from all your data sources to your data warehouse through either APIs or ingestion tools, which are just tools that make that process in a more reliable way. And that process happens every 30 minutes to 1 hour, depending on how fresh you want your numbers to be. So this will give you one single place where everything actually is up to date. You do not have to wait for any team members to actually update a sheet or add last week rows or whatever manual processes you still have in your business. Another thing in that step is that inside the data warehouse, you can run something called data transformation. And think of data transformation as an automated way of all your VLOOKUPs, your SUMIFs, your count uniques, your standardization. Everything you do when you import the data from the data sources to your Google Sheets and you run all your pivot tables to actually prepare the tables that will be ready to be visualized. That's what we call data transformation just at scale. And then we have the last part in the process, which is the analytics layer or the reporting layer, which manifests in your business either through pre-built reliable BI dashboards that have all your charts, all your KPIs, or your metrics that syncs in real time with all your sources, or self-service analytics, which is something that I will get into later in this presentation. Or if you want something more advanced, you can implement conversational AI, which means that you actually chat with ChatGPT or Claude, you implement it on the back end of your Slack, and you just like ask a question and you get all the reporting that you need from the AI. And I will walk you through everything step by step so that you can have an example of what everything actually looks like. And you can make sense of what I'm actually explaining right now. I will start with BI dashboards. So for example, this is a dashboard that we've built for one of our clients. It contains basically almost every single metric that the clients want to track. As you can see here, we have an overview page, which has all the metrics that the CEO wants to track in real time. That gives an overview about how the business is doing in terms of the main KPIs. And then we have standalone dashboards for every department inside the business where we dig deeper into the performance of each department. So we have operations, we have marketing, we have fulfillment, we have finance. This actually might differ from a business to another business. So for example, if you operate in industries like fintech, you might have, for example, the risk department that you might have special data for that you want to track. So this depends on every company, but I think 90% of the business that we work with, they all have those departments, which is an overview, operations, marketing, fulfillment, finance. sometimes customer success with more of where we track the churn, the retention, how much money was collected in months, etc., etc. The way we like to design dashboard just to optimize it for decision making is that we have in the top scorecards that gives a snapshot of how the business is doing now, and then anything that falls below is basically how the business is performing either month over month or day after day, that you can actually change the granularity here in the data too as day, week, month, quarter, year, etc., etc. The way we'd like to design dashboard is by following a storytelling frame so that it's optimized for decision making. So for example, in this case, we have total spend, total leads, total bookings, total show up, and total client. This is how the funnel looks like in the example of this business, which is, as you can see here, it's from top of funnel to bottom of funnel, from total spend, total leads, total bookings, total show ups, and total clients. And then here you will have raw figures that just like show you how many leads actually fall in each stage. The second raw will give you basically the conversions. The conversion from here to here is the booking rate. The conversion from here to here is the show up rate, and the conversion from here to here is the close rate, which is in this case 35%. And here is the cost of each stage. So total leads, landing page conversion, that gives basically the business how many people convert from the landing page to becoming leads, and what's the cost per lead. What's the cost per booking in that example, in this part of the funnel? What's the cost of per show up? And then the end, which is the most important number, which is the customer acquisition cost, which is the bottom of funnel. And here they can have their raw numbers, here the conversion, and here the cost. And this is, if you are a service-based business, this is how I recommend you to actually design your funnel. And then below, it actually differs on what you want to track. So for example, this is lead by channel, how many are Facebook, Google ads, Instagram ads, TikTok ads, organic, total clients closed per month, what's the monthly revenue that was closed per month, the retention cohorts, which is more advanced, the monthly show up rate and the close rate, average time to conversion, and then the CAC payback period in days, which is how many days actually the business spent to actually get back their CAC spend, which is in this case $900. So the luxury you will have by plugging this into your business is that the CEO or any head of your company will not have to waste any time to prepare any reports to actually kick off a level 10 meetings. All the data are here, they are ready for interpretation, and all you do is just like to gather and actually discuss what went well, what you should improve, and act on the number that shows here. Another level to the game, if you want to upgrade this, so along these dashboards, you can add something called self-service analytics. And self-service analytics is basically for teams that are extremely curious about their business. It's for that CEO or that founder who always loves to actually answer 10 whys deeper after asking any question. Because one thing you need to know about working with data in general is that one question will lead to another. And BI dashboard alone, they actually can answer 80% of the questions, but they can't really answer everything the moment you want to dig deeper into your data and start asking whys and starting diagnosing what's the problem with this number and this number, etc., etc. Because simply if you want to track everything using BI dashboards, you will need thousands of charts, which will just like become noise. So what self-service analytics actually allows you to do is fulfill your curiosity in real time just by dragging and dropping metrics and dimension around. And actually, let me walk you through it here. This is, for example, a sales service analytics portal that we have developed for one of our clients. And by the way, any number that you are seeing here are just dummy numbers, just for the sake of privacy, because we cannot just like share the numbers in public. So any number that you are seeing here is just like dummy data that's multiplied by coefficients just to keep everything secure. So back to our portal, if you want to actually make the most out of this, you need to understand three things. First thing is the dimensions, the second thing is the metrics, and the third thing is the filters. For metrics, I have, for example, total spend, average spend, total impression, average cost per mile, total unique visitors, average CTR. You can think of this as any metrics that are important for your business. So those are actually the metrics. For the dimension, think of this as anything that the metrics could actually be broken down by. So total spend, we can break this down by channel, we can break this down by date, we can break this down by country, etc., etc. Every metric has respective dimensions that could be broken down by. So what I can do here is, for example, if I want to know the total booking, I can just like press here, total booking, and run query, and I will have the total booking that was that have been generated since inception in this business, which is in this example 152,000 booking. If I want to know the breakdown of these by month, I just like go to dates here and press month. I can break it down by day, by hour, by week, by year. But just for the sake of simplicity, I would just like press month, and I will have here the breakdown of that metric on a monthly basis. So in January 2025, this is how many bookings. In March, in May, etc., etc. I can sort by alternate new to old. I can also visualize this to see the data on monthly basis. After visualizing this, I can actually even dig more deeper to understand what's happened on a monthly basis. So for example, if I want to know the capacity of my team, I just like go here and type sales rep and run query. I have sales rep added here and group by the sales rep, and I will find how many bookings were basically attributed to every one of my sales team on a monthly basis, so that I can analyze the capacity. The cool thing here is that I can actually dig more deeper and fulfill my curiosity the way I want. So for example, if I want to know out of all the booking that were assigned to Brandon in January 2024, what are the leads from what cities they were coming? So I just like need to click here, drill into the 624 and pick city, for example, and open this in a new tab, and I will have the breakdown of those 624 broken down by city. So for example, Austin, I have 204, Mexico City, 292, and then Toronto, 128. Actually think of this as a way that gives you the luxury to fulfill your curiosity and basically answer any question that you have in your business, so that you can end up with as much insight as you want. So this is regarding self-service analytics. And as I explained before, a third level to the game is conversational AI. So basically in that scenario, along your BI dashboards, you leverage AI to actually answer all your reporting questions by asking just questions on Slack, on email, or Microsoft Teams, or whatever the communication tool that you're using inside your company. And to actually show you how this works, I want you to go to Slack. I have here a channel that I'm calling AI Analyst, that I can actually ask any question about the business, and they will give me everything that I need without having to navigate any dashboards or pull any sheets or whatever. So basically the first thing that we need to do is that I will need to go here and tag the AI Analyst, and then I have the freedom here to ask any question that I want. So let's say, please, how many bookings we got for October 2025. Once I click here, I will get the thread, and it will start thinking here. It will navigate all my models that I have configured in the backend. So searching, explore, matching queries, then we're looking for October 2025. Here the AI is running queries, and finally it shows me in October 2025, we received a total of 4,572 bookings. If you would like to see a breakdown by campaign, channel, or compare this with other months, let me know. So you can actually chat with the AI to actually dig deeper into the data. So what I will do here, for example, is that I will say, hi, AI Analyst, please break it down by sales rep. And automatically AI will just take time to actually query and answer my question in a way that I got the breakdown of those 450 and those 4,572 by all my sales reps, which is for Alex, 1,125, Brandon this number, Rhonda this number, and Tony this number, and Michael this number. Here it populates some insights, like for example, Alex said the team in bookings for October, if you want to analyze conversion rates, pipeline attribution. But I think that most of the insights needs to come from you, and all the interpretation should basically come from you as a founder or a head of department or whatever leadership position you're holding, since you have most of context that are not that the AI is not aware of. So basically, all what I've just like been presenting, the BI dashboards, the self-service analytics, the conversational AI, can't actually be produced until you have this workflow up and running inside your business. That workflow has three parts, as I mentioned: data sources. We have data warehousing layer, where all the consolidation actually takes place, and then you have the analytics layer or the reporting layer. I have explained what the reporting layer actually means in its three different forms. Now let's dig deeper into the first two parts, which are more important, which is basically the main process, which are the data sources and the data consolidation or the data warehousing. So starting with the data sources, which is the first thing that you need to dial in. First thing that we recommend that you do is that you need to identify basically the KPIs that actually matters for your business. What we are doing here is that we are adopting an outcome-based thinking, meaning we start with what we want to actually measure and monitor. And starting from there, we can actually identify what are the sources of truths, what are the systems and the tools that will provide us with the right data to actually calculate those metrics. And the best way to actually do this is by using something called a business glossary. So a business glossary is basically just a document that you can actually grab in the description below. So basically, it's a document that allows you to organize all the metrics that you want to track, plus adding more context to actually keep things organized. So this is, for example, a business glossary. That's how it looks like. You have all the KPIs names. So this is the KPI name. You can see all the KPIs that you want. You can identify the types of the KPI. Is it an input or output? So input is basically anything that you can control, like for example, the marketing spend, the number of YouTube videos if YouTube is one of your acquisition channel, etc., etc. The outputs is basically things that you do not directly control, like for example, how many revenue you generate, how many clients you generate. You have the departments of the said metric. You have the owner, which is the owner of the KPI. Basically, it's the head of the department. So for example, here you can see Sarah, growth manager, Dan, CS manager, Alex, head of sales, etc., etc. You have here the definition, so make sure all metrics definitions are dialed in, so you and your team speak the exact same language. So one thing that you will notice here is that as you start becoming more data-driven inside your company, you will need to make sure that every team member actually speaks the same language. So when you say, for example, the word lead or the word client, everyone should actually be in the same page regarding what do you mean by that. When we say lead, is it just anyone that gives us his phone number or his phone number plus email? Those nuances, they need to be actually dialed in so that everyone is in the same page and things do not get lost in translation. The fifth thing is that you have the formula to calculate that metric. So for example, let's say here show up rate. In that example, it's number of attended call divided by the number of scheduled call. You need to dial this as well so that everyone has the exact same version of how this metric basically is calculated. You have the control date, and this basically is, for example, let's take a metric like revenue. What's the control date of that revenue? Is it the invoice date? Is it the cash date? So for example, this might more reflect on, this is like accrual versus cash. So do you want to consider the date of collection of the money or the date that we have actually invoiced the money? This is just like an example. There are more examples for other metrics. So this is just a case where this might be important. Another thing, which is the source of truth. So one thing that you will notice while you being data-driven is basically some metrics will require multiple data points, and the one data points might have multiple sources of truth. So you will need to basically identify what is the main source of truth for that KPI. So for example, when we say the number of clients should be resolved to the CRM, or should we resort to Stripe, for example, if you are counting the distinct unique of all the emails, etc., etc. The one is this metric instrumented or not? Basically, it's, are you capturing the data or not? Let's say, for example, that you want to calculate the churn rate. Basically, you're not capturing the date when the customers are churning. If you're not doing so, this is more of a process issue. You need to either launch a form for your customer success manager that he needs to actually populate to actually capture that data and have it there so that it's ready for analysis or interpretation or whatever you want to do with it. The time granularity, this is more of, for example, if you want to look at a metric, for example, like revenue, what is the level of time granularity you want to get into? Is it monthly is enough? Is it daily is enough? Is hourly is enough? If you have like more of, let's say an e-commerce business, they want to visualize things on an hourly basis. That might be important, depends on the business that you're running. This might be important, this might not. So you can act accordingly. If this is important for your business, use it. If not, just like you can ignore. And so on. There are like a lot of 2 or 3 more columns that you can consider. You can grab that template inside in the description and let me know in the comments if you have any feedback about this in general. So yeah, this is basically regarding the business glossary. And other context that I want to add is that, as I mentioned, you list all the KPIs by function, you add the context to the other columns. And before that, I would really recommend that you differentiate between what is signal and what is noise. And in my experience, I think the way how you should approach this, just to not have like multiple metrics and multiple charts that will lead you nowhere, is basically ask yourself this question: if this metric won't change what I do, I will just not track it. That's the way how you should approach this, just so that you can eliminate as much as you can and just like keep things that will basically lead you to the right insights to take the right decisions. Distinguish between inputs and outputs metrics. I think I have explained this, and then identify the main source of truth. I have also explained this one. The second thing now that you need to dial in is you will need to dial in your sources. So in your new business glossary, you have here a column called sources of truth. And basically those sources of truth is all the tools, all the systems where your data lives that basically act as a source of truth for this said metric. All right. And which is basically what I've been visualizing here in that workflow. In that, for your case, let's say you have sources of truth like your CRM, Facebook Manager, Facebook Ads Manager, Google Ads Manager, etc., depending on the tools that you are having. Those are basically your sources. Now, the second step is that you will need to dial in those sources. And what I mean by dial in your sources is, for example, if a metric depends on something sold in a sheet, it needs to move into a real system of record. And I cannot stress how important this is. So for example, a real system of record is just like a fancy word for a system or two. So for example, if you are using Google Sheet to actually manage and organize all your leads or your clients, you need to move into a CRM. CRMs actually act as a real system of record. So for example, here you have HubSpot, Salesforce, high level, ClickUp. This is for marketing. For, let's say, payments processing, you have Stripe, you have WAP, you have Wise, you have Mercury. So for example, if you are, let's say, receiving payments through your bank account, you should move into a system that actually allows you to do this and also stores your data. If, for example, you have a heavy finance function that invoices a lot every day, you need to move into a system like Zoho Books, like QuickBooks, like Xero, that actually have all the right modeling and the right organization tools that will allow you to dial in all those sources and have the data up and ready there. And here's the thing, you do not need to actually find a system for all your functions. That's only for the functions that are actually very, very important for your business. And let me ground this with a real example. The last quarter, for example, we have worked with a company that operates in the valet parking space, an industry that's extremely human capital heavy. And when I say human capital heavy, I mean hiring and managing and paying all those valet agents, and doing so inside a Google Sheet is an extreme mess. And the company was doing millions a year. So at that scale, what they need is that they need a actual HR system like Deal, like Gusto, like ADP, that can actually handle that scale way better than Google Sheets and way more organized than spreadsheets in general. Now, in your case, if you only have, for example, dozens of employees, 15 employees, 20 employees, you can actually just like get away with a Google Sheet. That would not be an issue. My point here is that every business has core functions, and once a function becomes actually critical or complex, it actually must live inside a system that's designed to be its main source of truth. Because the moment important functions of your business start living inside Google Sheets, the backend becomes chaotic. A final thing here is that if your case doesn't have a proper system in the market, then you should build a custom internal tool for your case. And this is something that I want to tackle as well. If your business or one of the functions that you have, like fulfillments, like operations or whatever, actually needs a custom system, like a proper admin panel or a place, this is something, one of the problems that we see a lot of our clients actually deal with, is that they need a system where they can assign Stripe payments to the respective clients in the CRM or in whatever the tool that they are using to actually manage their clients. If you are dealing with these issues, there are multiple no-code tools that can actually allow you to build custom systems that are tailored for your business model or the way how your business operates or your processes operate in general. There are multiple no-code tools that can allow you to do this. So for example, for our case, we use Retool to develop all the custom tools for our clients. And I highly recommend Retool since they have a very big community support, and you can actually get your solution up and live within weeks. This is regarding the data source. Again, this is the first part of the workflow. So we have discussed the first part, which is the data source, where you need to basically dial in this step. We have discussed the analytics part, which is how basically the reporting and the analytics and being data-driven actually looks like. So we will need to basically discuss what happens in the middle, which is how the data will move from all the systems to the data warehouse, and the data warehouse itself, how everything is basically developed there. And everything that actually happens in the middle is something that I call data consolidation. So how all that data will get consolidated together so that it could be visualized in a simple, digestible manner. So in the data consolidation, you have basically four core things that you need to dial in. You have the data warehouse, you have the ingestion tool, you have the transformation tool, and you have the talents to orchestrate everything. For the data warehouse, I think I have explained this. I would just like walk through it again. So basically this step is where all the data you instrumented in your different systems gets consolidated into a data warehouse. So think of the data warehouse like one giant Google Sheet on steroids that syncs itself, stays organized, and never breaks. You have multiple tools that you can use. I really recommend Google BigQuery. So the tools that there are multiple data warehouses in the market, but the main three are Google BigQuery, Snowflake, and Amazon Redshift. For our case, what we use for our clients is Google BigQuery, since it's very easy to manage. You can actually find your way out there very easily, and it's basically cheap and it could be easily monitored. So once you set up your data warehouse, what you need to do is how data will come from all those tools or your data sources to your data warehouse. And for that, you need an ingestion tool, and an ingestion tool is what moves data from where it's created to where it's stored, which is in that case the data warehouse. It takes the data from all your systems and drop it reliably in your data source every X unit of time, either every 15 minutes or every 6 hours, depending on how fresh you want your data to be. Example of ingestion tools are Hevo, Airbytes, Fivetran, or basically you can just like use custom APIs for those tools or your data sources if you have more technical members in your team. For our case, we use Hevo since it's basically easy to set up. They are all easy to set up, but the solution that we use ourselves for our clients is basically Hevo. The third thing that you need to basically also dial in is a transformation tool. And the transformation tool like dbt is where raw data becomes something you can actually read and use. Think of it like the formulas, the pivot tables you build in Google Sheets. You take messy data from different tabs, clean it, combine it, and calculate the numbers that matter. And dbt does the same thing, just at scale. So the way how you should basically imagine this is the same thing you do when you try to consolidate everything and doing it manually. So what you do, you log into all your systems, you export the data. So exporting basically the data is what the ingestion tools does. It exports the data from the sources and it's put it inside the data warehouse. In your case, in the manual side, you export the data and you import it into Google Sheet. Google Sheet is the equivalent of a data warehouse here. And you exporting and importing is what the ingestion tool does. Once you export and you import into Google Sheet, you start transforming the data. What you do, you prepare pivot tables, you run all your VLOOKUPs, your sum ifs, your count unique ifs, etc., etc. That's what the transformation tool actually does at scale. So this is how things will could actually add up analogically, just for you to make sense, because I think that most of the CEOs are seeing this or the founders are non-technical. So just to make the picture actually more clear for you. And the fourth thing that you need to have is a talent to orchestrate everything. You need someone technical, experienced in designing and maintaining scalable data models, skilled at consolidating data from multiple fragmented sources into a single source of truth, brings sharp business acumen, understand how data connects to strategy, growth, and decision making, and also fluent in SQL, Python, and YAML in building reliable data pipelines and transformations. You can actually do this. You can hire someone full-time to actually manage all the data and the backend things for you. Or if you want to actually work with me personally, you can check the link below in the description or in the first comments. You book a call and then we will get to discuss your issues and how we can actually work together and help you go from chaos to clarity.